She repaired strangers' hearts for a living, yet missed the one heart that waited 12 years for her footsteps outside a concrete house in Pampanga. When Dr. Amara Dela Cruz returned from London to bury her father, she found an empty bench, a silent kitchen, and a truth sharper than any scalpel. Worse, her American ex-fiancé had followed her home without asking, without invitation, without understanding that grief was not a problem he could fix. Stay with this story, because by the end, one woman must choose between the life she built and the love she abandoned. Dr. Amara Dela Cruz was 35, brilliant, composed, and famous inside surgical theatres, where seconds separated life from death. In London, she had become the first Filipina to lead a cardiothoracic department at Guy's Hospital, a position built on discipline, sacrifice, and sleepless ambition. Colleagues admired her calm hands and exact judgment. Patients trusted her without question. But for all her mastery over the human heart, Amara had become strangely clumsy with her own, especially where family was concerned. 12 years earlier, she left Pampanga with one suitcase, a scholarship letter, and money her father did not truly have. Ernesto Dela Cruz drove a tricycle, worked impossible hours, borrowed from neighbours, and sold the small parcel of land meant for his old age just to buy her first plane ticket. Amara promised she would come back soon. Then London happened. Training became fellowship, fellowship became promotion, and promotion became prestige. The years passed faster abroad, but slower for the man waiting. She sent money every month without fail. She paid hospital bills for neighbours, tuition for cousins, roofing repairs after storms, and eventually built her father a 2-story concrete house on their old lot. To everyone else, it looked like devotion. To Amara, it was proof she had not forgotten where she came from. Yet she never asked where the plates were kept, never sat at the dining table, never slept in the bedroom upstairs. She funded a house she never bothered to know. If you've ever built something with money that your hands never touched, drop Pinoy, but don't stop watching. The reckoning is coming. In London, she met David Carter, an American trauma surgeon from Boston, with kind eyes, relentless confidence, and the easy certainty of a man raised to believe every problem had a fix. They worked overlapping shifts, survived impossible cases, and fell in love between coffee, blood, and silence. For 2 years they were engaged, then they fought over the future. David wanted Boston, permanent and non-negotiable. Amara wanted the possibility of home. He called it sentiment. She called it erasure. They ended quietly, the way exhausted doctors end things, with too much logic and not enough honesty. Months later, when the call from the Philippines came, Amara was scrubbed in for surgery. Her father had died alone in the house she built for him. A neighbour found him at dawn, still in his chair near the window. The words reached her through the mask, through the fluorescent light, through the years she had used work to outrun guilt. This time, there was nowhere left. She booked the first flight to Manila and told no one except the hospital administrator. At Heathrow, as she reached the gate, she saw David sitting in economy with a carry-on and a face she had no strength to read. He had not asked permission. He simply stood when he saw her, then sat beside her on the 15-hour flight and said nothing at all. Neither did she. Above the clouds, they became two people trapped between a past life and a coming reckoning. At Manila Airport, humid air wrapped around Amara like a forgotten language. She moved quickly through arrivals, avoided David's eyes, and boarded a bus bound for Pampanga. She wanted the rough seats, the roadside vendors, the crying babies, the karaoke leaking from terminals. She wanted something familiar enough to hurt. David, uninvited and unmistakably out of place, rented a car and followed at a distance. By the time she reached their barangay, the afternoon sun had turned the roads white with heat. The house stood taller than the neighbouring homes, newly painted, almost proud in its emptiness. A blue gate, narrow balcony, tinted windows. It looked like the dream of a daughter who had mistaken cost for comfort. Inside, the rooms echoed. Amara placed her bag on the floor and realized she did not know where the kitchen was. She opened 3 wrong doors before finding it. There were unused cabinets, spotless counters, and a kettle still in its box. No one had really lived here. A woman from next door arrived carrying coffee and pandesal. She introduced herself as Aling Nena, then spoke with the careful kindness reserved for the grieving and the guilty. She told Amara her father sat outside every evening on the bench by the gate, watching the road as tricycles passed. He always wore a clean shirt when mail was due. Sometimes he said, maybe next month. Sometimes he only smiled. The neighbours had stopped asking when the daughter from London would finally come home. After sunset, David appeared at the gate with an overnight bag and uncertainty written all over him. Amara did not invite him inside. She did not tell him to leave either. He nodded once, returned to the rental car, and slept there under a weak streetlight while dogs barked in the distance. The next night, he slept there again, and the night after that, the neighbours noticed, of course. In provinces, silence is impossible. Even unspoken things gather witnesses before dawn every morning. The funeral stretched over 9 nights of novena, candle smoke, murmured grief, and prayers Amara no longer knew. In London, she had drifted toward Anglican services and then away from ritual altogether. Here, elderly voices led the rosary in Tagalog while she moved her lips half a second too late, grasping at words that once lived in her bones. David stood at the back of the small chapel without pretending, understanding. He did not kneel incorrectly, did not fidget, did not perform respect. He simply stayed still. On the 4th night, after the final decade of the rosary, a neighbour said what others had been swallowing. Her voice was not cruel, only tired. Your father died waiting. You built him a tomb and called it a house. Now you bring a foreigner who doesn't pray. What do you want us to see? The room went painfully quiet. Amara stared at the floorboards and said nothing in her defence. She knew excuses would sound uglier than the accusation itself that evening. Past midnight, she walked to the bench by the gate and sat where her father had sat for years, facing the road as motorcycles buzzed through humid darkness. There, with no audience left, her composure finally gave way. David found her at 3 a.m. and stood beside the bench until she spoke first. I became the best surgeon in London to prove I was worth the sacrifice, she said. I forgot the sacrifice was supposed to end. The words sounded unforgivably small. David lowered himself onto the edge of the bench, careful not to touch her. He looked older in the weak light, less certain, stripped of the confidence that had once made him irresistible. I thought sending money meant taking care of him, he said softly. Amara turned sharply. You thought? She asked. He swallowed. I thought that's how people survive. You work, you provide, you move forward. The knight held his answer against the silence of a father who had waited anyway. The next morning, barangay women arrived with food, folding chairs, and practical instructions. Men arranged tarps, checked the drainage, and spoke about an approaching typhoon. Amara watched them move through the property with familiarity she lacked. They knew where the leaks would start, which windows jammed in heavy rain, and how quickly the backyard collected water. Her father had borrowed their ladders, accepted their soup, fixed their tricycle tyres. They had become his family, while his actual daughter perfected distance in another country. By dusk, the rain arrived hard and horizontal, slamming into the roof and turning the road into a brown river. Water crept under the back door. Electricity flickered. The great surgeon who could split a sternum in under a minute stood in her father's kitchen and panicked over a sack of sand she did not know how to place. David rushed in from the car, equally useless, soaked and determined. A neighbour took one look at them and said, "Move aside, both of you." There was no mockery in the command, only efficiency. Men hammered boards against low windows. Women lifted appliances onto stools. Teenagers formed a line, passing buckets, towels and sacks. David grabbed a plank and started nailing it the wrong way. A farmer corrected him with 2 gestures and a laugh. He tried again, awkward but willing. Amara stood in rising water and felt humiliation burn through her chest. In London, she was indispensable. Here, in her father's house, she was the least useful person. The storm raged through the night, but the house held because the neighbours held it first. By morning, puddles remained, leaves clung to the gate, and the bench had shifted sideways in the mud. Exhausted, Amara stepped outside and saw Aling Nena wringing rainwater from a cloth while discussing breakfast options, as if saving someone's home were no great event. That quiet generosity undid her more than any accusation had. Judgment would have been easier to bear than this kind of patient, undeserved love. Later that afternoon, David brewed instant coffee in chipped mugs and found her staring at the bench again. His voice was gentle, almost hopeful. "Come back with me," he said. "London first, if you want, or Boston. We can make a different plan this time." She looked at him, at his wet shoes, his sincere face, his belief that grief was a temporary detour from a more important life. For the first time, she understood the full distance between being followed and being truly accompanied. "You came here to take me back," she said. David opened his mouth, then stopped. There was no point denying what both of them knew. He loved her, perhaps as much as he knew how, but always toward a destination he had already chosen. Amara's father had wanted nothing from her except her presence. That was the unbearable math of it. One man offered a future elsewhere. The other had spent his remaining years asking only for one thing she never gave him: herself. She ended the engagement in a voice so calm it frightened her. No shouting, no tears, no grand speech. "I need someone who would stay," she told him. "And right now, that someone has to be me." David stared at the floor for a long moment, then nodded with the expression of a man receiving a truth he should have learned earlier. The next morning, before sunrise, he placed the car keys on the table, whispered goodbye at the gate, and drove away alone. Amara expected relief to feel triumphant. Instead, it came as a quiet clearing, like floodwater slowly leaving a field. For the first time in years, she was not performing excellence for anyone. She was simply there, in damp slippers, with swollen eyes, in a house full of things she had bought but never used. She joined the remaining nights of the novena and let the words stumble out wrong. Old women corrected her gently. Children stared. No one asked her to leave or hide. After the funeral, people assumed she would stay a week, perhaps 2, before returning to a life worthy of newspaper profiles. But Amara did not rebook her ticket. She began with small humiliations. She learned where local vegetables were sold and how to wash rice correctly. She burned garlic, oversalted broth, and once nearly broke a water pump because she treated it like hospital machinery. Aling Nena laughed so hard she cried, then took Amara's hands and taught her the proper motion. Mornings became lessons. Afternoons became labour. She helped scrub the floor, sort her father's clothes, and repair the bench rather than replace it. At first, the neighbours watched with mild scepticism, waiting for this act of grief to end. But Amara kept showing up in old shirts and borrowed slippers, carrying hollow blocks, mixing cement, asking embarrassing questions, listening to answers. Little by little, she stopped being the accomplished daughter from abroad and became simply Amara again, Ernesto's child, trying, too late, but trying. She found her father everywhere once she slowed down enough to notice him. His reading glasses tucked into a Bible with underlined passages, a faded towel hanging beside the sink. Receipts folded neatly in a biscuit tin, each one labelled in careful handwriting. On the wall above his bed hung her graduation photo from years ago, corners curling in the heat. Beneath it, inside a drawer, she discovered stacks of remittance slips tied with rubber bands, preserved like letters from someone still alive. One evening, a tricycle driver came by complaining of chest pain he had ignored for months because hospitals were expensive and distance was easier than fear. Amara checked him on instinct, using an old blood pressure cuff from the Barangay clinic and questions more careful than any she had asked in years. Then another man came, and then a woman with palpitations, and then an elderly driver who admitted he had never seen a specialist in his life. A possibility began taking shape before her. The house had once been a monument to guilt. Now she imagined another use for it. The downstairs sala could become a consultation room. The spare bedroom near the stairs could store medicines. The balcony office could hold records. With help from the barangay captain and a former classmate in Manila, she arranged permits, donations, and second-hand equipment. She sold jewellery she no longer wore and declined a lucrative offer from London. This time, money would not stand in for presents would. They named it the Amara Dela Cruz Community Heart Clinic, though Aling Nena insisted everyone would just call it Doc Amara's place. On opening day, drivers lined up in caps and faded shirts, embarrassed by kindness and suspicious of anything free. Amara examined blood pressure, listened for murmurs, explained diet in practical terms, and referred dangerous cases to city hospitals with phone numbers already prepared. She worked without the polished machinery of London, yet for the first time her skill felt connected to where it came from. She did not romanticize the new life. There were brownouts, shortages, and days when bureaucracy nearly defeated her. Some patients returned too late. Some ignored instructions. Some thanked her with vegetables because money was impossible. There were nights she lay awake wondering what surgeries she might have led abroad, what research she had abandoned, what versions of herself were now gone forever. But regret changed shape when she walked past the gate each morning and no longer found the bench empty of meaning. Prayer returned the same way cooking did, awkwardly, then honestly. During novenas for other families, she no longer mouthed the rosary half a beat late. The words settled back into her tongue, carrying memories of childhood evenings, candle wax, and her father's rough voice attempting the mysteries after long work days. She still visited church less than the old women preferred, but she learned that faith was not performance. Sometimes it was simply staying seated on a repaired bench and letting sorrow tell the truth. 5 years passed. The clinic survived, expanded, and became known across nearby barangays. Younger doctors volunteered on weekends. A mobile screening program reached drivers who could not leave their routes. Mothers brought sons. Wives dragged stubborn husbands. On some afternoons, Amara stood by the gate and watched the road without loneliness, only attention. Then one dry season, a letter arrived from America with David Carter's handwriting on the envelope. She recognized it instantly and set it unopened beside her coffee for an hour. When she finally read it, the words were simple. He was married now. He had a little boy with stubborn curls and a talent for waking at impossible hours. He wrote that fatherhood had taught him what waiting really meant, and that only then did he begin to understand why she stayed. He thanked her for changing his understanding of love, even through loss. Amara folded the letter carefully, neither angry nor moved to reply. Understanding, she realised, had never been the point. Staying was the point. Staying through funeral smoke, floodwater, awkward prayers, difficult mornings, and the long work of becoming useful where love had first asked something of her. Dr. Amara Dela Cruz once crossed oceans to prove she was worth her father's sacrifice. In the end, she honoured him by ending the performance and coming home for real. If this story touched you, share it with someone who is still learning that presence is the only currency that matters. Was Amara selfish for staying? Or was she finally selfless? Drop Pinoy if you believe the bravest return is the quietest one. Then tell me, should she have gone back to London and built the clinic from afar? Or was sitting on that bench the only way to become a daughter again? There is no right answer. I want the one that hurts. Subscribe to Pinoy Spirit Chronicles. More stories like this are coming. Salamat.